the show, Victoria. I am so excited to have you on, and what we're going to discuss is going to blow everyone's minds. I just know it. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me, Marina. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Well, we have actually talked about doing this chat for a long time. We met maybe 7 years ago at a business mastermind, I believe.
Yes.
And we gelled straight away because I think we've both been obsessed, perhaps, well, I know I have, on the human behavior side of things. And so when we chatted and you shared what you shared with me, I was like, this woman, A, knows what she's talking about, and B, this is such a gift to share with the world. So I'm super excited that we finally made it happen.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to being here. It's awesome. 7 years in the making.
7 years in the that's no pressure, is it? Okay. So first things first, we're going to do a little icebreaker question. We're kicking off with, what would be the animal that would most represent your personality, way of being in the world if we zoomed you into animal form?
I think a lioness.
Oh, a lioness, because?
Because she's very nurturing, very caring about her family, her tribe. You know, keeps an eye out for everyone. She's a really good provider for the family as well. Mm-hmm. And she takes no shit.
I like it. I really like it. Okay, so then stemming on from that, if we could take your human powers and super them up, what would be the superpower that you would choose to have access to?
I would love just to be able to go anywhere in the world the instant that I thought about it, because then I could spread my message even further, faster.
Oh, I love it. Is that teleportation? Is that what that is? Yeah, I think it's teleportation.
Yeah.
I think it's a goodie. And then you miss customs, and then you miss the lines and the queues.
No more 23-hour flights
either. Oh my
either.
Goodness, yes. All right, so let's dive straight in. Victoria, who do you be in the world, and how did you come to be who you are?
I'm very much about learning. Like, learning is everything for me, and that's why I have two colleges, IPS Institute and Dynamic Academy. They're very different, but they're all about expanding your knowledge, expanding your world, and learning more and earning more. And when I think the biggest thing that happened to me was when I did my degree in adult and vocational teaching, my whole world changed. Completely changed, and put me on a completely different trajectory than I was on previously. And that wouldn't have happened without that education. So I'm really grateful for what education can do, very grateful. And it's an honour of mine to share that with others so that they can have a similar experience.
I love what you said there. It's almost super tweetable. You said that the two colleges help you expand your knowledge and expand your world. And then as you talked, obviously, I feel like there's an equation there. More knowledge equals, more world, or more capacity to know thyself and thy world. And so would that be true? That's
very true.
That's the foundational belief around the work that you do?
Absolutely. And self-development. Constantly, lifelong learning, always learning more. I have an insatiable appetite to learn.
Yes.
So it never ceases. Mm-hmm. And you keep expanding.
I want to speak to two sides of that, because I know through the clients I work with, we'll put them to the side. We'll call them the positive, or what we would perceive as quote unquote the positive growth junkies. But there's a double-edged sword to that, I feel, or I'm seeing it more, and sometimes witness it in myself as well. And then I feel like there is in society, if we look at the broader collection, because I fully acknowledge that we sit inside a microcosm, inside the growth and the personal development world, and that is not the general world out there. And I don't know about you, but I feel like in the general world there has at some point, I don't know if it's a magical age or if it's a belief structure, but we go from being, it's okay to be a learner, a beginner, it's okay to fail and learn, to some point where we feel like, oh, well, I got off the train, now I'm supposed to know it all, so if I don't, well, I'm stuck. And if I admit that I don't, now I'm, less valuable. It's like we lock ourselves down, not necessarily you and I, because obviously we highly value growth, but would you agree that in society there's this stigma around you should already know it, and if you don't, it means something about you?
I think there is that stigma, and I think there's also there's an issue out there where people don't know what they want to do. They don't understand exactly who they are or the path that they're on, or they're not enjoying the path that they're on, but they don't know what to do to change it.
Yes.
I see that a lot.
Yes. And we're going to dive deeper into the awareness of self-knowing, know thyself, so you can literally be yourself, which is the work I do in a different way to you. So But around this learning piece, do you feel like and I know you're very heavy into the education and changing the education system, so I wanted to ask you, with that wealth of wisdom that you have, and the global leaders that I know that you've, you're very humble in the reach that you actually have in the world, but when you sit and you look at our education system, and I know it's evolving, and I have 2 young girls in school, so I can see glimmers of hope, and yet we still have this "you did right, pat on the back, you did wrong" scolding. And so I'm wondering if, at some point we're in that container, but we also learn that to be wrong or to fail just doesn't feel good. But in truth, it's so essential, isn't it, to our growth?
Absolutely. And if you look at any successful entrepreneur, they had many failures. Absolutely. Many failures. So we actually call it failing forward, right? So you fail, yes, you've learned, and you won't repeat that again. Now, if you repeat it, there's a problem. But if you learn that you don't repeat that pattern, and you change that, and you learn from that, failing is essential.
Well, and even to that, I would probably just add on, because I agree 100%, and I will say, actually, we're probably going to repeat the mistake again, and I actually feel that's okay, because in the space that I teach, and I call it self-sabotaging successfully, because we are pre-wired. Absolutely. And these patterns will be there, but if we can navigate them at a bigger capacity, with more allowing ourselves to experience more of ourselves, we're actually, like you say, failing forward or self-sabotaging successfully. Yes. Because those programs are built in, and just like any muscle, we can't just train it once. We know how to work the bicep, and we know we can get a strong bicep, but if we stop, then we lose the bicep muscle, much like we can lose the pattern of affirming a new experience of ourselves.
Absolutely. And learning.
Learning, yes.
The brain is a muscle too.
Yes, it is.
So we have to keep it active.
100%. Right. So inside of the 2, because you mentioned you have 2 colleges, like it's not enough just to have one. Side note, #overachiever, I'll just go and create 2 colleges of education. But you said they're quite different. So what would you say is the distinction, and which is perhaps maybe more aligned with your passion or moving forward, or if either, or do you have 2 for a reason?
They're both aligned to my passion, but for different reasons.
Okay.
So IPS Institute was the first company I created, and it is a registered training organisation, which means, for those who don't understand, we're like a private TAFE college. So we receive funding from the government to help others learn. And we do apprenticeship training and, a lot of blue collar, you call blue collar training. Now, the reason that I'm really passionate about that is because I discovered in my long career so far that the blue collar people, when they were at school, were marginalised at school.
Yes.
And they come to adulthood thinking that I can only get a trade, and that's looked upon as a substandard vocational outcome. And so they have a self-esteem issue straight away when they get into the college. So the reason why I love the college is because we turn all that around.
Yes.
We give them self-esteem back.
Fantastic.
We let them know that they can create amazing wealth and growth from the trade that they've chosen, and that it's not a second-class citizen, that you'll probably end up making more money than a doctor will eventually, right? Especially
Absolutely.
if you're an electrician or something like
or
that.
A builder. Or
a builder,
yes.
etc. The world is your oyster. And so we bestow that upon them, and they've had that beaten out of them. In high school, university is seen as the pathway. It's seen as the pathway by the teachers, and often seen as the pathway by parents. And it's natural that each generation want the next generation to do better than they have done, right?
Yes.
So that's a natural thing for parents to want for their children. I get it, but it can do a lot of damage to the ones that just are not suited for that pathway.
Don't fit the mold.
So what happens is there's like 25% of the population are suited for a university pathway.
25%.
25%.
Yeah, good luck to the rest of the 75%
Exactly.
who don't fit the ideal mold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm passionate about changing that, and changing that in the schools, because when we get them at the college, it's too late. Damage has been done.
Well, it's not too late, like you're saying, but it's
we're
harder.
helping them, but
Yes,
it's harder.
yes.
So if we could reverse engineer that, and make sure that didn't happen in
I'm with you, sister.
P
Let's do that.
to 12,
Yes.
then those people are going to be so much further ahead.
Yes.
And achieve a lot more, and do their own thing with support.
Yes. Great. This is so the message that I am aligned with too. And, if you sit with anyone, at some point you're going to bubble down to that belief, I'm not good enough on some level. And it is reaffirmed, unfortunately, by our education system simply for the reason that you just described, is that we don't all learn the same. 1, we don't all have the same interests. 2, our genius zone sits in different places.
Exactly.
3, then we've got all these beliefs that we have to move through about ourselves, what's right, what's wrong, based on our family structure, side of conditioning, and so on and so forth. And it's no wonder we end up doing things we don't like, that we're not really good at, that we never really reach, a level of bliss in. So that school, I love it. You're taking the people and you're saying, you know what? This is not a disadvantage or a handicap. In fact, it's your gift to the world.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
And then the other school, because this is the one that we originally talked about 7 years ago, and it kind of essentially, I imagine, helps with that school do its job.
Exactly.
Yeah, and speaks more into what we just discussed, which
Exactly.
is figuring out who you are earlier and how you learn and what lights you up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please tell us more
So
about the second school.
So that's how they work so well together, hand in hand, and that's why I'm passionate about both. So IPS Institute is about skills acquisition. We're really looking at the skill set. We're really looking at the vocational outcome, right? Which is great because it gets people on their pathway.
It's results too, isn't it?
Solid results.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tangible, really tangible.
Yeah.
And then Dynamic Academy is all about a dynamic framework that we utilise, and we start the journey with a profiling tool that actually identifies their natural talents and strengths. And that can be such a gift on its own, just to understand that, this is who I am, this is why I do the things I do, this is why I show up in the world the way I show up in the world, and this is why I don't get on with that person so much. And now I understand they're just being who they are in the world, and I can accept them easier than I could before I knew about this.
Yes.
Right.
And this is what I really want to dive in today, because I feel like, and I too work in the place and space of self-awareness, self-love, self-celebration. I call it self-sovereignty, like knowing myself and then living in alignment with it. But I feel as if there is and again, based on this inoculation essentially that occurred, where it's like, don't be like that, don't be like that, don't be like that. And we essentially disown parts of ourselves, and we're too scared to pick them back up. And I agree with you, profiling tools kind of give us a way to identify, well, yes, you're different to them, but there's actually a lot of you here. You thought this was a solo island, but there's actually a whole tribe that also have this amazing gift. And yes, it's different to that island, but then further to that, and what I'd like to get into, and you've kind of touched on it, but the benefits to knowing yourself. Like, what are the benefits to me understanding? Say I go through a profiling tool and I now become aware that, now I see that mum and dad were like that, and that's profile A, and I'm actually totally so deep, high ranking through this profile in profile B. Yep. What's the gift I actually just gained?
To understand,
multiple layers.
To understand where your parents were coming from.
Yes.
To understand that they just weren't trying to give you a hard time.
Yes.
They just have a different view of the world.
Yes.
And you have a different view of the world.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yes. So would you agree, for me, when we know ourselves better and therefore can understand others better, we get compassion for self and compassion for the other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because from their frame, what they were doing made sense, but from our frame, it doesn't.
Exactly. And even and your children, I've got 2 beautiful boys, bless them, they're in their 30s now, oh my God, but they were chalk and cheese, absolutely chalk and cheese. So one was all about, he had friends over all the time, and he had friends, he was the centre of the group of friends. And on Sunday morning, I never knew how many boys I had turning up for breakfast, and so everyone,
Mr. Social.
Everything centered around him. And then I had my other son, who was always had a head in a book, on the computer, completely the opposite, completely introverted, all right? And I always used to worry about him as a parent, because we're told that you've got to be great with people and always be around people, and that's what leadership is like, right? So then you worry about the other child who's showing completely opposite traits to that. So if I had understand this as they were growing up, I would have realised that that son, who was very introvert, he's having as much fun as the other one is, but in a very different way.
Yes.
And he was actually connecting with all of his friends online.
Yes.
They didn't need to get together
And
face to face.
he may just not need as many either, right?
And
So
no,
this is the distinction.
he has fewer,
Yes.
but very
Quality,
deep connections.
yes.
Very deep
And that
connections.
meets his needs, because it all comes back to our human needs. And I love that you say that about your sons, because I have 2 daughters, and again, they are very compatible but chalk and cheese. And what I love to do is celebrate their unique distinctions. And it's interesting that we even debate nature versus nurture. I'm like, if you've had children, this is not a debate anymore. They are born the way they are born. Yes, our programming 100%, I think, inhibits the natural flow of our innate, like nature-given DNA magical genius code.
Yes.
But it's not something that we learn through nurture. That is there. And you can see that in the personality of 2 children from the same family in an instant.
You can.
I agree.
Very early too, you can see it very early.
So we get compassion for understanding people. And I don't know about you, and I'm just going to throw this out there, probably from the perspective of when we first talked. It reminded me, when I was about 17, I went to a leadership camp. It was actually one that was sponsored, and it was an amazing camp, actually, looking back. And it was a real gift, and it was done by Rotary. It was a Rotary group. And I went on this camp, and they did some amazing exercises that I still will reference and gave me deep insight. And one of the ones they did was essentially using a profiling tool. They separated us into groups after the profiling tool and put everyone with the same categorization into their own group. So it was like birds of a feather. They flocked us together, but they didn't tell us. And then they gave us a task that required multiple applications to execute, like an idea creation, a systemization, then an execution, and then a finalization, all these things. And essentially, basically, some groups didn't even get started. Some groups had all the ideas in the world. Some groups were fighting about the process, but never really, And it was such an aha for me. And when we spoke, I was like, this is the thing. This is the thing that they did that time when I was 17. Because what I realized is, again, and I've seen it inside of my business, is if I have 45 staff with the same skill set, we're going to be great at one thing, but nothing's ever going to be whole and completed and its fullest, highest evolution.
Absolutely.
And so would you agree that beyond compassion, once we understand thyself and they can understand themselves, is there some kind of gift in collaboration, or we can celebrate and everyone can work? Can you speak to that point?
That's exactly what this is about. Because once you identify, especially in a team, when you identify what your strengths are and you know what everyone else's strengths are on your team, you can then actually leverage your strengths and talents. And that means you create, we create a genius enterprise, because everyone's allowed to flow in their genius area as much as possible, as much as humanly possible. Now, your profile's not an excuse, you've got to still suck it up and do whatever you need to do in business, or you don't have a business, right?
Yes.
But wherever possible. So we talk about and we create businesses that are project-based.
Yes.
And they're project-based for a very good reason. So people work across multiple projects, but they only work across the project in their natural talented area.
So I feel like this is like that saying, like if in a team, everyone just plays to their strengths. When you talk about a genius zone, it's everyone playing to their strengths. And then everybody can feel amazing. And I know that you do this primarily with businesses, and we've discussed it a lot inside that business space. And I can absolutely see in the past where I've employed someone because I like them, or employed them because they wanted to experience something different, and really put them in a role that did not suit, as you say, their strong suit. And as a result, the cost of that is huge.
Massive.
Because now there's there's guilt and, guilt between them not fulfilling. And even, I suppose now that I have this higher level of understanding, I actually even experience guilt for not knowing better, and for putting them there. But it really actually can sabotage what otherwise could be an amazing relationship.
Well, I had an experience, and this is why I got involved in this. So this was the catalyst for it. I was secretary to the Archbishop of Brisbane, which was a beautiful position. It was a lovely environment to work in. They were very caring. I was going through IVF at the time, and it was just a really great environment to be in at that time. But the position needed me to look after 30 committees. Now, looking after
only 30 committees?
Only 30. So 30 committees is all about timing. Everything about timing. You have to send out the papers at a certain time. You have to send out the notice of agenda at a certain time. Like, everything has to be done. And every different committee had different timings attached to it. So I felt very, very under the pump. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I would beat myself up because I loved the environment and the people were great. And other people would say, wow, I'd love a job like that. How do you get that sort of job, right? But I didn't like it, and I suffered with Monday-itis, and I lived my life looking forward to Friday because I didn't want to be there. And because I'm a perfectionist, I put everything into it that I possibly could, but it was not my strength. In fact, it was opposite to my strength. My strength is big picture thinking, strategy, and this was completely opposite to that.
Yes.
And so I didn't know that at the time. And I stayed there because the people were so beautiful, and I was loyal to the people.
Yes.
But I nearly killed myself. So my system would get sick. If there's a flu going around, I get the flu. If anything that was
working so hard, isn't it? It's working against the natural flow.
Totally.
That takes effort and energy.
Exactly. And my system was trying to tell me to get out of there because it was killing me, literally.
Yes.
Now, if you keep doing that in life, you can end up with cancer or a heart attack eventually.
Yes.
That's what will happen. So it's really, really important to recognise that and not stay there. Now, if I had known what I know now, then I would not have even applied for that position because it was so obvious it's not who I am.
And I feel like for someone to do that, to kind of actually acknowledge that's just not my strong suit, it actually takes a degree of humility, doesn't it? To say, I'm actually not great at everything. I can be good at lots of things and brilliant at some. But when we're like, I want the role, I love the people, but sometimes it's actually like, and if you go down this road, you're not going to feel the flow of life, the alignment. It's really an alignment piece, isn't it? And I do want to just speak into the listening of those, with us in this conversation right now. If you're not in business, you're like, oh, this doesn't relate to me. Hold up. We're talking about teams. We're talking about relationships. So if you're a mother or a father, we're talking about the team of your family. Maybe even some chores can be allocated to the right child to have them experience confidence, winning, flow state, value.
Absolutely.
Likewise, when you conduct family, quote unquote, meetings, unless that's just me that does that, and we have little meetings, then the way that, I can speak into it, one is knowing my children's love language. Two is knowing their natural innate gifts and also their biggest struggle right now so that I can frame that. But this gives another layer again to understand when we decide to move forward as a team towards a combined goal or outcome, i.e. a clean house, any mums listening, how do I then know their genius zone and enroll them? So now that we're clear that this is not just a work, and I know you do amazing, if anyone has a business, this is like a must because it's costing you money. It's costing you efficiency. It's costing you team morale. It's just costing you. And if it's in a family, start listening deep. Could you share with us, Victoria, are you open to give everyone a little bit of a categorization, whether it's profiles or the energies or something to kind of so they can start to go, ooh, I feel like I'm more at this and I can see that someone else in my life is this. I can start to now feel into how this applies to my life.
Okay, cool. So we have, everything's based on frequencies. We have 5 frequencies that are involved in this particular tool, and 4 of them are measured. And this is what I love about this tool too. I'm just going to say this straight up. It doesn't pigeonhole anyone or put anyone in a box because the frequencies are measured and they're given a percentage. So on our wall at work, we have everyone's profile up on the wall, and we've got a lot of a particular profile which we should have for the college, the RTO, and it's about compliance. So we've got a lot of those people that love compliance and legislation.
I feel like I would be at 2% on that energy frequency. Marina would be like 0 for compliance.
So we've got about 5 lords. Lord is the name of the profile that operate in that compliance area. Okay, but they're all the same profile, but their graph is completely individual.
Yes. Like a fingerprint,
Absolutely a fingerprint, because they've got the different frequencies show up in different amounts in all of us.
Yes.
And that's what I love about this tool.
I
really love it. So the 4 frequencies that we measure, one of them, the first one is called dynamo, and it's always first because it's the season of spring where everything starts from, and it's all about ideas. Right, which makes people. So these people who've got a lot of dynamo frequency in them come up with ideas, like 2 o'clock in the morning. Yes, and that's Marina and I are the same profile. We're both creators, is the name of the profile, and that's predominantly dynamo frequency. So there's ideas on steroids. Everybody gets ideas, but dynamo gets them when they sleep, right? So, and then you have to write them down at 2 a.m. so you don't lose it. So it's the big picture. It's the eagle eye view,
Yes.
not the detail. Can see 5 years out, clear as crystal, but what I've got to do today, not so much. So, and again, depending on how your percentages show up, right? That's the caveat. So that's Dynamo. Really, really big picture. Very fast talkers, very visionary, very visual as well. Okay, and then we come around the side and we have another frequency called Blaze. Blaze is the season of summer and it's the element of fire. So the wood from Dynamo feeds the fire. It can also singe the fire, but we'll talk about that another time. So it feeds the fire. And the people who've got a lot of Blaze, they're out there people. They love to be around people. They need to be around people all the time. They get energized by being around people. They're the talkers, the communicators. You know, they if you think about summertime and you think about barbecues on the beach, that's what they love to do. They just love, and they want to have fun, and they want to be around people, and they need variety. All right, if they don't have variety, they'll check out. So in school, a lot of the kids I was talking about that get disengaged from school are Blaze frequencies, and they're often diagnosed as having ADHD, right? Because they can't sit still. And so we drug them up in schools often, and they often spend a lot of time in the principal's office, right? But that's not what's going on. They just love to be around and communicating. So they're the noisy ones. They communicate constantly with people. All right, so that's Blaze. And then we've got Tempo. So now it's a square. So now we're coming around the bottom of the square. And this is where the frequencies start to slow down. So Dynamo is very, very fast frequency. And as we come back this way, it gets slower and slower. So Tempo is very grounded frequency. So it is the element of earth. It is the season of autumn. So in autumn is harvest time. It's when we get everything done. So it's a very, very busy time. So these people love to get things done. They love to make sure they've got a checklist, and at the end of the day, they check it all off, right? They are very much into team harmony. They love everyone to love each other. And they're very nurturing, very caring. So a lot of the education and health industries attract the people with high tempo frequency in them. And tempo is all about timing. So for them, they have a schedule for everything. They even have a schedule when they're on holidays, right?
I work with a lot of these people who are like, I got another spreadsheet for you, Marina. I'm like, yay, thanks. And they're like, it's gonna be awesome. And I'm like, shoot me now. Shoot me now.
Yes, because you don't want any structure.
Well,
you want less structure.
Yeah, I don't. It
than
doesn't
someone
light me
who's got a lot
up.
of
The way
tempo.
that they get lit up about a spreadsheet,
exactly.
I cannot comprehend. But I love it. I do love it when I see them.
I know. Well, bless them, because I don't want to be like that.
100%.
But they are, and that's beautiful, and I appreciate it. Exactly. And then the last one is steel, and steel frequency is all about the detail. It's all about dotting the I's, crossing the T's, like real analysing, and they analyse everything. They're about systems and processes. So they have a process for a process and a system for a system, basically. They love to make sure that everything is clear, crystal clear, certain, and they love to measure everything. Now, in a business, this is awesome because they measure your profits. They're measuring, are we making a profit or are we not making a profit, which is a pretty important piece of the business puzzle. So yeah, very, very, very detailed, and they'll get things done. So, Dynamo will start things. Blaze will make sure the message about that gets out. Tempo will make sure everything gets done that needs to be done to achieve the strategic plan, and still make sure that all the systems and processes are in place to support all of that in relation to a business. In relation to a family, as you said before. This is about how can we harmonise together? How can we understand each other? And how can we say, yeah, you're like that and I love that and it's beautiful and it's great and we don't want you to change. Or we can say, look, to ex-husbands in my case, oh, that's why he did that. That's why he was like that. Oh, that's why that used to freak him out.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, when you can see that, you can be more understanding, more compassionate, and not get upset about things that you used to get upset about.
And I feel too, when you have as you said earlier, when we have greater knowledge, we also have a greater world, a greater space to operate in. And I agree with you in that. And so for me, when I understand concepts better, and it gives me more of a frame, particularly for the parts that are not innate to me. So, you know, I have a daughter that literally likes to know the plan. And sometimes I'm like, just trust me, I've got this. Because part of me wants to interpret it as she's not trusting me, she just needs to lighten up, blah, blah, blah. But in truth, I understand now because, you know, I understand not everyone is the same as me, and that's what enables me to be a good coach. Is with her, I'm like, okay, so babe, this is the plan. Boom, 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 boom. And she needs to see it structured out for time. And then I say, but remember that it could change. And if it does, we're going to be okay. So, but she then can hold on to that and feel safe and secure and go with me on my wild adventure, knowing that her needs are met. It's really just about meeting needs, as well as you said, like playing. I mean, when you mapped it out like that, the 4 seasons essentially and 4 energies, it's like, well, yes, if we allowed everyone to work to their genius, so imagine the flow, imagine the creation. I'm curious, how many entrepreneurs, because obviously I have a lot in my tribe, you know, entrepreneurial nature, and it's something that's existed in me since the dawn of days. Do you agree, or do you find that too many of us try to do all of that? And that's where we get stuck.
Especially micro businesses, they have to do it all.
Yes.
Right, and so you need to build your business to a point where you can start outsourcing
and delegating,
and you have, and that is when your business becomes really, really powerful. It goes to the next level then. And you've got to also trust. You've got to trust that the people you're going to engage have got this.
So really what you're saying there, because I know in my 20s I almost killed myself adrenally, being everything, doing everything, sales, marketing, rostering, training, teaching, the whole kit and caboodle, and adrenals just got shot. And then when you go to recruit, I think sometimes, would you agree, the mistake is we try and employ someone like us who we think should have all the skills, but really what we should maybe do, from what you've just described, is find the area that we're least skilled in and hand that over to someone who's a genius, which means they may show up in ways that actually annoy us or trigger us. I mean, does that happen?
Absolutely, and we've actually got a formula for that. So it's a 1, 2, 3 formula. It's so easy. So whatever profile you happen to be, there are 8 profiles, by the way. Whatever profile.
So sorry, 4 energies. And
4 frequencies.
4 frequencies, thank you.
So the 4 frequencies make up 4 of the profiles. So Dynamo is creator, Blaze is supporter, Tempo is trader, and Steel is Lord.
Yes.
All right? So I've really described those 4 profiles as well. Then there are another 4 profiles that sit as an integration of 2 of the frequencies. So we have a star profile, which is a combination of Dynamo and Blaze.
So it sits on the line, essentially.
Yeah.
Which now makes sense, because when you were going through, I was like, well, hang on, I know that I came up a creator and engineer. Which is it engineer? Is it
creator and star and mechanic?
Mechanic, yeah, not engineer.
So
mechanic.
they're your secondary profile.
Yes.
So everyone has secondary, and they're always the same. So every creator has mechanic and star as their secondary.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right,
Okay.
and your secondaries are great because they're like your wings. You can step into them when you need to for about 20% of your time.
Yes.
And that's okay. You can do that.
Yes.
All right. So you're actually covering those 2 as well when you need to. And then but the best place is to be the creator. That's where you have your wings tucked in and you go the fastest. Right?
I just had such a great visual of like an eagle soaring through the air, because I'm not visual at all. No. Yes. Okay. Continue. Sorry. So those the other. So basically, as you're saying, there's 8 in total, but always based on these 4 frequencies.
And if you need to slow yourself down, because creators often need to slow ourselves down for the rest of the team to catch up, it's good to step into your secondaries, because that brings your wings up, that brings your flaps up.
I studied aviation. I understand how the flaps work. Yes, to create resistance and slow us down. Yes, perfect. These images are working so well for me, Victoria. I hope for everyone else too. But thank you for making them play so sweetly into my zone of knowing.
And then there's another profile. There's a combination of Blaze and Tempo. That's called a deal maker. There's another one that's a combination of Tempo and Steel, which is called an accumulator. And there's another one that's a combination of Steel and Dynamo, which is called a mechanic. All right, so that's the 8. And in all this time I've been dealing with this tool since 2006, I've only come across 8 types of people.
Yep,
I've
they
never
fit.
found a ninth.
Yep.
It really does fit. It really does work. And as long as you answer the questions in the profile from what you love to do, not what you have to do.
Or what you're good at now because you worked
yes,
hard at it. Yes,
because you had to. Because there's learnt behaviour and there's natural behaviour.
Yes.
And we want to know what your natural behaviour
Yes.
is and keep you in that as much as
Yes,
possible.
yes,
So that's how it all came about. And I just
and
love
the
it.
equation you were getting to,
Sorry.
no, that
Equation
was
of
like,
1, 2, 3.
how do you then find,
All
okay,
right.
this is where I need to pull someone in to
So
fortify me.
you're a creator profile, so that you're in position number 1. The
Great.
next person,
I'm winning. Is that what you're saying? No, I'm
well,
just kidding.
whatever profile you are, is
It's
position number 1.
Damn it. No, okay, I'm totally stirring. But yes.
It's all good. And then the next profile that you should outsource to or get on board as soon as you possibly
Yes.
practicably can
Yes.
is 2 steps away from that. So it's not a star, it's a supporter. So a creator and a supporter work so well together because a supporter can actually take direction from you and can give direction to the team. So they make you best operational managers,
Yes.
your best people managers.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
They're really good. Creators should never manage the team.
This is exactly, so interesting you're saying this because, I have multiple businesses, but at the moment, the struggle that I've been having, I've had a transition of staff. I normally actually historically have very long-term staff placement, very little staff turnover.
Yep.
About 2 years ago, I had a big transition because I went through a big transition and shedding and all the things that were in the highest good for my personal and professional alignment. And since then, I've been struggling to find the flow and efficiency. And just 2 weeks ago, or recently, I was saying, you know what it is? It's that I need someone. The reason it worked so well for so long is I had someone who received my information and then I spoke just to them with the idea and then they sent everyone else to do the things. They were like the mouthpiece to the tribe.
Yes.
And I didn't have to take it and put it out. They just took it and then they put it out, and that meant I didn't have to look at myself again if it was a content piece. I trusted them and then they would tell the team, and that was when we're in flow. So this is exactly what you're saying. So this is now what I need to go and find again.
Exactly what I'm saying. And then the next one you need is 3 steps away from the supporter. So that's deal maker.
So, sorry, go back again. 2 steps away from me initially and then 3 steps away from them. Wow, this is super scientific. This is the 1, 2, 3 you're
This is
talking
the 1,
about.
2, 3. This is
So clever.
Just
I
1,
love
2, 3
this.
steps, right? So 3 away from your supporter is there's a deal maker, there's a trader, and then there's an accumulator. So you need an accumulator. An accumulator will look after your money and your assets. Does that make
thank
sense?
you. I have gotten so much from this communication. I literally now know the source of all of my issues and how to solve them. Truly, though, that's actually so accurate. It's ridiculous. Yeah,
Cool.
That's fantastic. I can see the massive benefit, particularly to any entrepreneur or someone who just wants to be really powerful in. And when I use the word power, I don't mean it in the way that the culture uses it, which is, corrupt and over someone, but I'm talking about that true inner power, like to tap into your inner well and have that magic shine so magically out into the world.
Absolutely.
These are the kind of tools that help us to do it because I certainly got trained, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, do it all. And what that meant is I got very good at doing things that I didn't want to do. And I tell the story frequently. I mean, I did a degree in aviation, talking about people going to uni that don't really know themselves. I did that by ticking a box and saying, well, it's a good idea. I love my dad. He's a pilot, another double tick, looking at the values and making a quote unquote logical decision, which to be honest, in my opinion now is the last place we should make decisions from is potentially the mind because of its miswired information.
Exactly.
And I teach obviously a very different way to make decisions, but what I love about this is when we have tools or profiles, it gives us something outside of ourselves to reflect back to ourselves, something that perhaps we weren't prepared to see through our own lens or that we blocked.
Or we couldn't see.
Yeah, because exactly, we either blocked because of our programming or we literally didn't have that map yet. Like you said, knowledge gives us a wider world to look at. So I love this. I'm just thinking, there's so many applications for people in this, and I can see the benefit of it. Yet, I want to ask the question from a position of devil's advocacy,
Sure.
because anything to an extreme, I think, often turns into the inverse of the blessing. And we were laughing actually recently. I was sharing that at my recent Bali retreat, we were saying we often say it's a double-edged sword. The beliefs that kind of kept you safe in childhood now block you from your fullest experience. This is very much what I teach across the board. And as a result, it's a blessing. We don't want to disown it or make it wrong, but it's also now kind of a curse if we use terminology of the modern era. And so one of my attendees, Eloise, at it was like, it's a blurse. And then we started this hashtag blurse, like a blessing and a curse. So I totally sidetracked. Where was I going with that? So yes. So
Devil's
my
advocate.
question is, thank you. The labels in general, you know, I know you said before you don't get to use this as a permission slip to be like, well, that's just how I am.
No.
So where is it a blessing, and how could it be used as a quote unquote curse, or where does the label start to limit us? Like, how do we need to approach this kind of tool so that it actually expands us and blooms us as opposed to blocks us?
Well, it expands us because when we understand what everyone is, and I'm going to go back to the business situation because that's the easiest thing to relate to.
And it's your niche of expertise.
And it is my niche of expertise. When everybody understands what all the 8 profiles are, and it takes 2 hours to understand it, right? It really does. It's just 2 hours, right? And then you understand what each member of the team is, and you've only got 8 to remember, which is easy. Whereas some of the other tools are very, very complex, right? So you can then think, oh, well, that person will show up this way, and that person will show up this way, and I show up this way, and that's all good and that's all positive, and everybody is valued for what they bring to the table. So we actually do a little thing when everyone identifies their strength, their natural talent. We write out what their natural talents are that they love, who is actually attached to their profile naturally, and is also attached to their passion without fail.
I love this because essentially, you know, what I teach is wholeness, which is all parts are welcome, and the celebration of all parts, you know, not making parts wrong. And essentially that's what you're saying, and this tool enables you to do is everyone to show up inside of their magic. And would you agree that there might be a tendency for one profile to think that the other profile is sexier or better?
Absolutely.
And but like you're saying, it doesn't function.
But when they understand that no longer occurs.
Yes.
Because we'll often hear, oh, that's you know, Debbie Doomsday. You know, there's someone who always will see something wrong, right?
Yes.
And that's the person who can actually see the risk.
The lawyer.
Correct.
Yes.
Steal, right?
Yes.
They see the risk easily, whereas Dynamo never see the risk. Dynamo's like, yeah, we're going to do this. It doesn't matter that we haven't got the wing attached yet on the plane.
Yes.
We'll have it attached by the time we get to the end of the runway.
You know that I know this intimately as well. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So
why do you have to be so negative for? Why do you have to be so negative for?
And they're not being negative.
Yes.
What they're doing is identifying it. Now, if you can choose to take that on and have another look at that risk and put something in place so it's not so much of a risk. Or you can choose to ignore it at your own peril, right? Because they'll only tell you about it once. They won't say it again, but they will tell you, I told you so.
Oh, yes, yes.
If it goes wrong.
But what you're saying, so this is where the limit could be making your frame better than someone else's, or making someone's better than yours. So the comparisonitis could be an issue if we got too attached to labels or didn't recognize that they're all valuable. But equally, is there something where you can, like, I can imagine someone just sort of using the whole, well, that's how I am, so deal with it.
Well, that's the first thing we say. Your profile is not an excuse. You have to suck it up, sunshine, and do whatever we need to do.
But we're supposed to hold that compassion piece, right? Like,
but you still can't let the team down.
Yes.
If we don't have a certain frequency covered on the team at the moment because our business is at a certain stage and we haven't got all bases covered yet, although you will have all bases covered with those 3 people with their secondary profiles, you cover the whole 8.
I see. I can see
so
this. I
by
can
the
see
by,
now the logic
behind it.
Yes.
Okay, so you will have them all covered, but when you don't, then you've got to pick up the slack. The work still has to be done, but at least you're going to do it, understanding that it's going to take you a bit longer because it's not your strength. And by the way, your manager will understand that too, right? Someone who's great at spreadsheets might take 20 minutes to do a job. Someone whose strength it's not might take 2 hours.
Yes, and this is the benefit of working to your genius.
Exactly.
Ease.
But if we have to, we have to, and then we understand it's going to take longer,
and
that's
okay.
Motivated
to get rid of that skill set very quickly.
Well, then we're motivated to make sure we get the right team on board as soon as we can. And what happens when we recruit people? We recruit us because we don't know we're doing. We do it without even being aware of it.
I can see that.
And we get on really well with those people, so we bring them on board, and nothing gets done.
Yes.
And for creators, we get a lot of ideas, but we get nothing implemented. or very little implemented, right?
Yes, yes.
So you need that whole team to be working together. So that's the first thing. You understand that. Your profile is not an excuse, so we have to do whatever we need to do. But we're going to stay in our flow, and what we're going to do is we're going to help each other be in flow. So when everyone understands who everyone really is, and forget the labels. I mean, the labels could say anything.
Yeah.
But when we understand who everyone is, then we can support them and give them the tasks as much as possible that will keep them in their flow.
Yes.
And then they'll give us the tasks that will keep us in our flow. And that's why we have all the profiles on our wall in our team meeting rooms. Okay. The team sits down, they just look at the graphs. We just have the 1-page graph on the walls, and they make decisions in the projects of who's doing what. And there's no argument. There's no, I don't want to do, because it's there in black and white what everyone's strength is.
Yes.
And so you make the tasks according to.
I love
So
it.
the job fits the people, not the people fitting the job.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, isn't it? It's like we need to stop, or it would be helpful if we ceased trying to fit square pegs into round holes and then telling the square peg it just doesn't fit. It's like, say, this is a round hole, calling all round pegs. Would you like to come and place yourself in this round hole?
Yeah,
That's kind of what you're saying.
Exactly.
Is that, yes, and that if we have a round hole and four square pegs because the first square peg was like, I want more square pegs. It kind of, when you look at it like that, it's like, that's just crazy. But yet that's what we often do, is we try and find people like ourselves, and therefore.
And when I first implemented this in our team, we doubled our revenue in 6 months.
See, and there's a huge benefit.
Massive. And not only that, morale improved.
Yes.
Because everybody was really enjoying showing up for work. Absenteeism decreased because we didn't have anyone having Mondayitis anymore.
Yes.
Right? They wanted
huge.
to be there. And they don't want to go home because they
Feel so
lose all track of
appreciated.
time
Yes.
because they're lost in the
Flow
activities that they love.
Love this. I love this so much. And you know, it also speaks further to, it was something that I very frequently say, is I feel that in society we have this mistaken belief that connection comes from sameness. I'm the same as you, so now we are like friends, we can connect. And, you know, obviously through the deep coaching work I do, I realize that actually deep connection comes from acceptance that you are maybe wildly different to me, but I just see you and I allow and hold space for you to be you. And now we are in connection.
Yes.
And if we can start to celebrate, as you're saying, our unique differences and revere them, not only do we actually feel connected and celebrated, but now we have flow, as you're saying. Everyone gets to be magical. I love it. I love it so much, Victoria. And it's so valuable what you're doing inside of businesses, because then it enables businesses to serve people even better, because that's essentially the structure of a business, is to then serve its clients.
Absolutely, and we have an equation for that too. It's called the wealth equation, and it's value times leverage equals wealth. So value is created through your products and services, and the more value you create for your customer or client, the more they're going to keep coming back to you, right? So value is very, very, very important,
Yes.
and that's dynamo and tempo, frequency. And then you leverage it through your people, which is blaze, and your systems, which is steel, right?
See how everyone's needed. Yes,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so your people are your salespeople, your marketing, your branding,
Yeah,
all
no,
of that,
100%.
and your
It's
systems
so,
are
so
supporting all
valuable.
of that.
Yeah.
So when you've got, and what happens is we've all got a view of the world, which is our frequency, our dominant frequency. And so we often can't see what we can't see. So when I look at businesses, they'll be doing value in product but not in service, or they'll be doing value in service but not necessarily in product, or they will be doing leverage through just people, or leverage just through systems.
Yes.
But you need to have all four equally
All parts need to be there.
to have something that is going to be truly having momentum and having success.
I love it. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, I'm like getting huge ahas around, some areas that I need to go right now and fix immediately. But beyond that, I'm also having a little aha that even, beyond the family unit, parents, kids, etc. This is like gaggles of girlfriends. When you go on a girls' trip, which I'm blessed enough to have high school girlfriends that we do that. And it's like, there's the one who's like, it costs this much, here's the timetable, here's the schedule. And then we've got one that's like saying, I think this could go wrong. I think that this is, I don't think that's and then we've got the people who are like, let's go here and do it all. And, it's all the energies are so present. You can start to literally, I'm sure those of us listening, if you really feel into people, you can immediately start to feel these frequencies that you're talking about.
Yes.
And as you say, it's not to label them and box them in, but it's to understand them and now lovingly revere them for their genius zone.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it so much. Victoria, thank you so much for sharing that. And obviously we're going to link to particularly anyone that wants to even just do this profile. I mean, I did this profile not with my team initially, just so I understood myself better.
Yes.
And it's very easy. It can be done online. It doesn't take very long,
Correct.
right? So we're
10
definitely
minutes.
10 minutes. We're going to link to that.
Yep.
Perfectionists might take 15. No, just kidding. But we're going to link to that so everyone can have access to doing that, with you. And I know you work with teams. But I wanted to speak just, as we kind of, come to the end of the conversation, a couple of quick fire questions, but also to get to know you better and why you decided to do this. So inside the School of Growth, and particularly even the whole womanhood aspect of the stuff that I teach, I always say we trade or essentially our beliefs cost us our life, or our life is based on our beliefs, And so I'm wondering, what was the belief that you have had to shed or really face off with or remove because it was a block at some point in your life to allow you to have a greater capacity and experience of yourself? Like, what's the belief that you're like, that I did hold true, it was limiting me, and I went to work on it?
The belief that I didn't believe I could do anything. I believed that I was a secretary and that's what I would always be. And my husband at that time wanted me to stay there and be that, but I always felt that I could do more, and I always felt that there was something bigger and better for me, and there was something that I was supposed to do in the world that I wasn't doing, but I didn't know really what it was.
So the blocking belief was, I can't do anything?
Limitation.
Yes.
Limitation from other people's expectations.
Okay, and then you swallowed that pill and you wore
I
it
swallowed
for a while.
it, and but then I started learning, and I started to see a bigger world, and my world expanded.
Yes.
Didn't contract; it expanded, and the closest people around me wanted me to stay contracted.
Well, this is what we but in
because
fairness,
this is
you
the journey.
created that ecology so that you could again reaffirm that belief. So understood, yes.
Yeah.
And so then what would be the belief now that you would say, the expansion of your life was primarily based on, like the embodiment of which belief changed the game for you?
The embodiment of learning all about the law of attraction and manifestation. That was the game changer for me.
Which is essentially a frequency conversation, isn't it? It's
It
like the
is.
frequency we hold is what the universe will match us as.
Yes.
I actually think I saw just yesterday another rephrasing of that on Instagram, which, these days is essentially, the new quote books that we read, but and it was essentially that the universe is just reflecting back to you that which you believe you are.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And
Exactly
I was like,
right.
that's a great way of saying it.
And so does your business, by the way. Whatever's going on in your life happens in your business as well. And and I've learnt these lessons as well the hard way. If you stop loving your business at any time, it stops loving you.
Yes, I can see that.
And the reason is because it's all organic and it's all frequency.
Yes.
And it's also about the law of attraction.
And it is a living, breathing thing. I don't obviously specialize in the area you do, but I help a lot of people who decide they want to take a seed and grow it, launch. And Entity Identity is the name of the product that I run, which is like bring to life that being so that you can actually be of service to it. It is not you. And it should have its own identity and its own purpose and its own reasoning. But you're absolutely right. Like if we stop loving or taking care of a person, it would make sense that they would feel that unlove and shift their energies somewhere else to create it potentially.
Exactly.
So it would mean we would not receive it. That makes 100% sense.
And we'll
to me.
often see when we do that, when we take our love away for whatever reason, we get a new boyfriend, we get sidetracked, whatever it is, or we get set up a new business and we put our love into that's what happened to me. We put our love into the new business and forget about neglect
I have done
the old
the same.
one.
Yeah,
right?
when you found your new aligned passion, you expand it, even though you don't not love that.
Yeah. So what happens is the original business starts to contract and starts to shrink, and the revenue actually starts to disappear. When you don't love your business, your revenue disappears. So it's really important to love and nurture that beautiful vehicle that you've created that is supporting you and supporting your life.
Yes.
That was a big one for me to learn too.
I love that. And, inside, again, the work that I do in the School of Growth, we often talk about, a lot of it's reframing what we believe in society, but we often believe in society that there's these problems and these challenges and that they're there to weigh us down. And obviously I hold the frame that life happens for you, not to you, which means that breakdown or that challenge is essentially the choice and the opportunity for breakthrough. It's in the soil that we are birthed. And I'm curious, firstly, do you agree with that philosophy?
I do, absolutely.
Yeah. And then in your life, could you give witness or would you mind sharing, the breakdown that ultimately led to my breakthrough? I can see it now in retrospect, and often it is in retrospect that we see it. What would you like to share or speak to on that?
The breakdown for me was that job that I had that I hated, I hated the work, the tasks. And the fact that there were other things out there for me that I didn't realise were out there for me. That was huge, because I really did have a breakdown. I really didn't enjoy my life for a long time. I really didn't. And I don't want anyone to ever have to go through that, hating Mondays. So both my businesses were created so that people would never hate Monday.
And so let's speak to that, because Mondayitis is real for a lot of people. It's not something I relate to, because obviously I don't even operate on a schedule of Monday to Friday with the weekends off. And I've been blessed to work for ideas that I have created out of thin air since the age of 23. Yet I understand that it is real. And I also, having said that, I understand what it's like to do things that you don't necessarily love to do because you love the bigger picture more. But when someone has Mondayitis, in really simple terms, what the heck is going on there?
They're just out of flow.
Yes.
So that's all that's happening in business. Your business, your people, they're either in flow or out of flow. Nothing else is going on.
So when we say in flow, you're saying they're out of alignment with their genius zone. I would say also out of alignment potentially with their values, or they're not seeing how what they're doing feeds their values and their needs.
Or they're not attaching their values and their, and their
leveraging
needs
it
together.
Across. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's
Sometimes
resistance, a block, a block of flow. I love
Definitely.
that.
So we want everyone to be going down the river using the momentum of the current. That's all we want. So we want everyone to turn the boat around, go down with the current, and then you can look at the riverbank. You can enjoy the journey.
What would you say to someone who's like, but I want to go in that direction, and the river's going in this direction? Like, what would you say to that? Because some people would argue that, but I want to fight and go upstream.
I'll give you an example, actually. One of my salespeople had a daughter in year 12, and she was miserable because she wanted to join the Navy. She was a supporter profile, so she's all about people. She wanted to be a leader in the Navy. So the end result was going to be in flow, but to get there, she had to be great at science and maths. And she was really struggling with science and maths, to the point where she was having suicidal thoughts. Like, it was really serious. She was under a lot of pressure. So he said, would you do a profile debrief with her? So I did. And what we were able to do in that, and this is a great example of it, I was able to show her that this was going to be uncomfortable to be good at science and maths, because the frequency said that was going to be a struggle for her. All right. But the end result, being in the Navy and being a leader, was completely in alignment with who she is. And that would be an awesome vocation for her to choose. So you're going to be a bit uncomfortable for a while to get that end result. And everything changed. And she then
she could
said,
see the vision beyond the
absolutely.
mountain.
And she said, I just need to get some help. I just need to get a coach.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing this forever.
I need a tutor.
Yeah.
So she went home to mum and dad and asked if she could have a tutor for maths and science, which they were more than happy to give her.
Yes.
Because she knew it wasn't her strength.
Yes.
And that gave her permission to get help, so that she would then achieve her end result.
I think that is a really powerful story, and I think that is super valuable, because essentially it also brings up that very often not really weighted to the degree that it should be concept of immediate gratification versus delayed gratification. And we are in a society of instant gratification. Yes. Reply to me now, get a like now, order Uber Eats now, versus delayed gratification. I feel like we've lost that muscle of patience and persistence and commitment.
Yes.
I agree. And then as you were speaking, something else popped to mind, and I was like, I just had this aha around, because obviously I went through uni very happily studying the sciences, very happily, doing stupidly well. I always say that, it's such a silly phrase, doing really well at being, very smart at school. And then it was towards the end of my degree where I had lots of things happen that this panic, similar to the panic she had, started to kick up, because I think the opposite was true for me, that I was in the joy of learning, which is always a bliss state for me, and, doing well at things, and, just learning. And then it kind of dawned on me, once you've done all this learning and once you learn and experience new things, which was still going to be good, doing all the flying, at some point, Marina, you're going to sit inside a metal cubicle. It might be 32,000 feet in the sky, but it's going to be a metal cubicle where you check the same checklist every day.
Every day.
And a part of my soul was like, whoa, abort, you know. And it was really tough because here I was, you know, the pin-up of the degree and you know, my whole family in it, and I was doing so well. This is where I learned that, I really learned that lesson, that being good at something is not a good reason to do it. Because my flow state wasn't aviation, my flow state was learning. My flow state was learning, you know. And so I, just as you said that, I was like, yes, I can see that. And I can see the reverse of that too, where we can get somewhere and go, oh, this was the end destination? No, this is not in alignment. So this profile tool, gosh, you know, I feel like before going to uni, why are we not looking at these things?
Exactly, because you can save 2 years being in the wrong program and all that money that you spend being in the wrong program. You can alleviate that right away then. We also have a tool for kids. So we have a tool from an 8-year-old to 15-year-old, so they can actually make their subject selections based on who they are.
We will be getting Harlow and bailout to give those a whirl for shiz. Yes, I love it. Gosh, I'm just so juiced up about this conversation. This is such magic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so rapid fire pop quiz, School of Growth questions. Books, programs, learning experiences that shifted your life, like top 1 or up to 3. What would you say?
Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks, absolutely. Law of Attraction. Abraham. Yep. Absolutely wonderful. YouTube channel. Just do it. Just listen.
Okay.
I usually start my day with one of those YouTube videos. It's really good because there's so many of them, so that's all cool. Jack Canfield, who I actually wrote a book with as well.
You did, and I love Jack. So when I was like, what? How? I was like fangirling on you because I'm like, what I love about Jack is, yes, he tells the stories. Yes, it all makes sense, but he's really tangible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Man is a legend.
Really tangible.
But you wrote a book with him.
And I wrote a book with him called Mastering the Art of Success.
So it's
a bestseller. So
hashtag best-selling author. This is what I mean about the humble piece. Oh, I forgot to mention I have a best-selling book with Jack Canfield. What?
So that would be definitely another author who's dear to my heart, and changed my life and helped me with my business. And then the other one that actually set me on my spiritual journey was James Redfern. And now I'm going to forget the name of the book. Isn't this awful?
It'll come
The Celestine Prophecies.
Oh, Celestine Prophecies.
Yeah, absolutely game changer for my spiritual journey.
Interesting, because it is told, it's kind of written like as a novel, which is one of the I think it's a good one for people who don't love to sit down and learn self-help stuff. It tells the story, and as you say, so many great metaphors and learnings in
it
that.
Also has a companion workbook that you would love because it takes you on a learning journey.
I haven't seen that. Okay, but yeah, I have read the book. All right, good. We will link to all of those in the show notes. Thank you. And then what would you say, what is your go-to, or what would you recommend to everyone to do in life that you've found powerful to elevate their energy/health, like the physical experience in this skin suit? What would be your number 1 recommendation?
Keep doing what you love to do. That's it.
Yeah, keep the flow.
That's it.
Yes.
Keep the flow.
And then what about for a more empowered happiness in our being? You know, what would you say for more empowerment and the experience of more joy or happiness?
Lifelong learning.
Commit to
keep learning.
Stay in
keep
the
growing.
Yeah.
Keep expanding. You know, in IPS Institute, our byline is learn more, earn more, and in my life that's been completely 100% true.
So learning,
go to next level,
you'll
next
get
level,
more
next
empowerment
level.
from learning. Yes,
Yep,
agreed. And then what about in the space of heartfulness, or what I would say your fullest expression in the world, like who you can be, the impact you can have in the world? This could be through enterprise, or simply, you know, if you're not in business, like really living from an expanded capacity of your heart and showing up fully. What would be your number 1 tip or recommendation there?
Really for me is, I get students to do this too. I love everyone to have a vision board. Create a vision board and have everything, every facet of life, not just work. What you want to, where you want to go, what countries you'd like to visit, all of those things, and put it on a board and have it somewhere where you can have a look at the first couple of minutes in the morning and last couple of minutes at night, just to let the powers of your subconscious mind, make it come into
It's really
fruition.
allowing that reticular, isn't it, activating system to go, there's where I'm heading, there's where I'm heading. And vision, it tows us. And it's one of the reasons that in a conversation around now is all that's important, I will say yes, and we can learn from the past, and the future can tow us. We can role model into our higher selves in the now. Now is where we can take the action, agreed. But I see the benefit in the other two as well.
And we also do it in business too.
Yes.
So we get the whole team to, we create a vision board every year.
That's awesome.
And the whole team contribute to it.
I love
and
that.
it's on our wall.
All right, so then this one is a little tricky. Well, it's not tricky, I won't pre-frame it like that. It's so easy, you can have no issues at all with it. So if we could put a message in a bottle, old school, or we could send via digital text to every single mobile on the planet, or your subsection, your tribe of people. But essentially it's character limited. So it's one sentence, and it's like, if you could say nothing else to the people on the planet, but this one message, but everyone would receive it. So this is, I suppose, the essence of the truth that underpins everything that you do. What would that one message be?
Be authentic to yourself.
Be authentic to you, yourself. I love it. It's a good one.
That's it.
All right. And so stemming from that idea of being authentic to self, and you know, we've had a really juicy conversation, I thank you for it, around knowing yourself and the benefits of self-awareness and playing to your strengths. So what would you say for those listening, and for each of us, like to embody that message you just gave us? What would you suggest we do? How can we join you in impacting the world with this message and this energy? What would be the ways we could do that?
Just keep digging for your authenticity, because it gets lost. Other people put things on top of us. Kids, like we have children, we have family, we have all these things, especially as women as well. And I know there's a lot of women listeners, right? We juggle a lot of things, and a lot of things start to dull us down, shall I say, and we can't stand as tall or shine as much as maybe we would like to, because we're meeting other people's needs, we're meeting other people's expectations, and we've forgotten who we are, and we've forgotten about, we've got to look after ourselves too. So self-love is so important, and I'm talking to myself when I'm actually saying this at the moment too, right? Got to remind ourselves, it's so important. And to feed our soul, whatever our soul, whether it's music or whether it's physical activity or whether it's reading a book on the beach or whatever it is, make sure you feed your soul as much as you possibly can, center back to self, and then you're better for everyone when you go back out in the world again.
Yeah, so I feel like what you're really saying there is, it's not a one-time deal, it's a continual returning to self, so that you can be that authentic self. Because like you say, it's like if I had a diamond and I put it on the table, but then I put books over it, the diamond is still there, but I might periodically need to clean up the table to see it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we're much the same. I agree completely, and you know, that's obviously very much the work I do in the world, so I love it. Victoria, thank you so much for being on the show today. Like it's been, well, I just had got complete business coaching and can see all the errors in my business structure, and I'm going to go do something about that, so I appreciate it. But I know those listening would have taken a lot from the wise words you shared. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you just want to finish on, or do you feel we've covered it around?
I think we've covered everything we need to cover, and I really appreciate you doing this with me today. I've really enjoyed it, and I love to share. That's the other thing. I love to share knowledge and ideas, and I just love this. It's just been awesome.
And we will link to everything in the show notes. So if you need to, you would, well, not need to, if you'd like to, and you can see the benefits, which of course there are many, take that step, do it. Victoria, you're amazing. I love you so much. You're such a compassionate, loving, and wildly creative woman in the world. And we need more women standing in their sovereignty and shining their light. And you're a beautiful example of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marina. I really appreciate it today. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.